Morning. Set this up a little tidier here. We used to have an expression when we were younger, after a heavy night of drinking or whatever, we'd say, I feel rougher than a mountain goat's kneecap. I look rougher than a mountain goat's kneecap today. Morning, Miss Chime. Cold and sweet, windy Sweden. Oh wow, you're on holiday. As far as I know, you don't live there, but how would I know? Lovely to see you, and thanks for stopping in. But yeah, I was just saying how why do I look so rough? I don't know. I was thinking about it yesterday or the day before. Like, I know I've spoken about it a bit lately on this channel. I'm starting to sound a little bit self-obsessed, perhaps, but I've always been able to rely on myself looking kind of youthful, and the last 6 months have aged me significantly. A lot more grey, and then sometimes I remind myself, not to be fixated on the meat suit, the package, the external, because really, this is only an avatar that I get to carry around with me for a finite number of years. The infinite soul within is far more, or that I'm connected to, and we're all connected to, is far more beautiful, or far more, complete and lovely, and this is just a paper bag that you're taking the shopping home in, and it doesn't matter that it gets a bit creased and crumpled, and even the odd tear here and there. I've noticed that my camera's a little bit skew. Let me just find something to straighten it up with. Sorry for the technical issues we're having here this morning, my friends. I'll better get a better piece of wood. Or I'll just lift up the whole piece of wood. How's that? It's cold here actually in this jar this morning. Quite chilly, quite frosty, but not the coldest morning we've had. I'm sitting right by the fire, as you can see. There she is. It is. Warming up this room. Hey Sean, how are you going? Thank you, Ms. Chime. Andrea and Alexander are great. Alexander was very happy yesterday to have his brother turn up, Luke. So we're now 4, which was how we had been for the last year in our house, or year and a half, because Jessica had gone off to university, within Alexander being about 6 months old, I suppose. She was, or even less. Yeah, within 6 months she was off at university. So Alexander has sort of had grown up with her out of the house mostly, but Luke was always in the house. And for those of you who don't know, when following the story last year, we Luke went off to university middle of September, and then the end of September we'd packed up and put everything in a lockup, and we were homeless. So we were lost. We were without Luke in the unit. And for Alexander, that was a very significant change. So we've got Luke here, my friend Clint. If you saw the live that we did yesterday, my friend Clint brought Luke up for us from London. He'd caught a bus up to from Bournemouth to London and stayed overnight with my mother-in-law, and Clint brought him up. So we are four, and they're asleep at the moment. At some point they will join me. I'd had a good opportunity to go on Jeranism and have a fair crack at presenting the 8-inch per mile hoax, per mile squared hoax. I'm absolutely certain that that what we've done is we've put a cage, we put a ball into a cage, square cage, and then we've said measure the distances basically from the top of the cage to any other point on the ball, and then measure the difference between that point and that point, but always using the cage as the reference. Well, that I think is the nub of the problem and the trick, because there is no cage, there is no square, there is no horizontal, there's no up and there's no down in this notional idea of the space that they tell us in their comic science. So the solution is quite simple, but I don't quite have the answer well enough to satisfy the mathematicians that there is a maths method of demonstrating the amount of benditure. Bob and Jeran are both on the same page. I mean, Jeran has a formula which might be more accurate than mine, but he disregards it on the basis that it's 0.3 of a meter for every meter, or 0.318, I forget exactly, but so it's 0.3 of a kilometer for every kilometer. It's 0.3 of a mile for every mile. It's always the same amount of bending. I mean, it's a smooth bending, isn't it? It's a constantly smooth bending that he sees, and Bob gets it too, but not convinced. There's not enough to say, all right, well, we can now dispense with the 8 inches per mile squared. I feel uncomfortable talking to people about the 8 inches per mile squared because, to me, it is a clear obfuscation. And it is so obviously an obfuscation. But Jeran was like, well, it couldn't be that steep at 0.31. It would be so obviously steep. You're on a very, very steep mountain. And that's the crazy thing about it is that actually it probably is that steep if you were to really live on a ball. Balls have got steepness to them all the time, but what we've been tricked into doing is choosing a flat point on the top. And I didn't make this point very clearly, but if you go 1,000 miles in one direction, then you've only descended 140 meters. Oh, this didn't take long. Morning, you two.
Morning.
Yeah. Alexander and Andrew have just come to join me this time, so very well.
Beautiful sunshine.
Beautiful sunshine.
Beautiful sunshine.
Miss China is in Sweden, and it's wet, windy and cold out there. But
well, it was during the night, but it's
windy.
After blue skies and sunshine.
Yeah.
So.
We're going to do some gardening today.
We are. We're going to go work on a little vegetable patch.
We're going to go and do some digging today. It's good for the soul and the soil. Anyway, so that was my opportunity to go on Jeranism. I'll talk about it some more in due course. I'll continue working on it. I'm sure that it's not 8 inches per mile squared. I'm just not exactly sure what it would be in this theoretical imagination thing that we've got going on. Because really it is all in the mind, my friends. And speaking about it all in the mind.
Sounded like Max Egan.
Oh yeah, my friends. Andrew says I sounded like Max Egan. My friends.
It's all in the mind.
Yeah, it's flat. No, it's not. It's a ball, but it's a flat ball.
It's 8 inches, but no, it's not 8 inches.
Yeah. No, it's this. What was one of his favorite catchphrases? It's I don't know, folks. It's all a grand deception. Don't vote for them, but vote for them over there. Now, speaking of grand deceptions, you have to ask yourself the question. I called this stream coronavirus because I'm kind of jumping on the bandwagon of silliness that, I'm not saying that people are not getting a flu or a cold flu thing that's called coronavirus. And some people die from it. But thousands of people die. What was the number you looked at last night? 100,000, 600,000 people die of the flu every year.
Well, it's 290,000 to 650,000 annually die worldwide from the flu, but there are 5 million cases reported.
To the CDC or to the World Health Organization.
Yes, I mean, something I read, which is very true. Of course, people are getting this supposed coronavirus and not even going to hospital. So the records, the statistics that they supposedly have for this coronavirus aren't necessarily accurate either, because people just get a cold or some flu symptoms and they treat them normally and recover. But they reckon that it'll be sort of around the 3% mark. It will be of deaths, and that's pretty normal for.
But to be fair to people who are concerned about coronavirus, what they're doing is they're pumping up this idea that, well, if you go out and about, then and you're going to, and people get spread this thing, it could be, it could lead to a worldwide epidemic or pandemic or outbreak and whatever. And we've been programmed for this, haven't we? There's so many movies and books written about the potential of a human Black Death type event, and I'm only putting the question out there: that is this coronavirus, is this their big one? Is this the big one that they've been planning for? That the Zika and the Ebolas and all of this were simply part of the sort of stepping stones, or is coronavirus just another stepping stone towards more and more draconian governmental interference, more and more handing over our sovereignty and our control to some kind of authority that shouldn't be there. So I'm definitely of the mind that this has the hallmarks of that.
I think well, the most important thing is, and it's part of like preparing the ark, isn't it? Is make sure you're healthy. So if you're healthy, then whatever virus you get, you should just have to let your body do its necessary process of getting better. And
absolutely, this is look, at the end of the day, most people, if they get a cold or a flu or whatever, are going to recover from the vast majority. This isn't a killer virus in any way that it's like more than usual, as far as I know. Is it to be able to be spread more effectively than the common? Well, as you say, millions get it every year. Millions get it every year. But for me, it's much more powerful in the media, in the sense that they can stop people from gathering, they can stop people from moving. The system can say, oh well, you can only move here if you've been vaccinated and depollinated and all this kind of stuff and so on. So there's far more to be gained from the few deaths, and that's why part of my but my title for the video stream this morning was some to do with coronavirus, and then 22 veteran deaths per day. Now, there's many more veteran deaths per day by suicide, I think, than that. But in America, they lose 21 or 22 soldiers every day from suicide. And I think if you obviously looked across the plain in the military boys, that if whatever they've been through has caused them, whatever it's caused them, such that they want to take their own life, I think you'll find that there's a lot more than 22 per day. And this is thousands and thousands per year of veterans that are killing
themselves. I've got another statistic in South Africa. In one weekend in Cape Town, in a township, there will be 50 murders in one weekend.
50 murders in a township in one weekend.
And those are the ones that are reported. So we need to get this on this.
And a township, just so if people don't know, is typically an African or black African.
Well, no, in Cape Town it tends to be not African. It tends to be mixed race.
Mixed race. What do you mean, like Cape Coloured?
Yeah.
Cape Coloured are the Malaysian kind of. We're told they call them Cape Coloured. These people. Anyway, it doesn't matter their names and stuff. But the point is that they're generally economically depressed areas.
And very gang in Cape Town anyway. It's very gang related.
The world is run by gangs, but just in the main, it's the Vatican and banking gangs that all wear white suits and get away with what they do. But in the townships, these are gangs who drive around in stolen cars and use stolen guns.
Just hate on each other, really. You're in my group and you're in your group, and I don't like you, and therefore
you don't. The reason why I was sparked to kind of my streams, my notifications or my why don't you watch this next kind of thing was Washington State in America has had their first from coronavirus, and they were doing a press conference with about 15 doctors and talking about all the potential issues and ideating. And then I'm reading through the comments section, and people are like, "Oh, you're not doing enough," and people are actually absolutely being panicked by this, and feeling like, one guy's comment was, "Now this is a good time to be an agoraphobic, and have a fear of going outdoors." Basically, they're in people's minds, they are creating this major. I'm not saying this one person didn't die from this named virus, but they're creating this major pandemic in the mind. It's not necessarily a real thing, but people are so prepared for what it might mean, having watched the movie Outbreak and movies, other movies that sort of give you the idea of this is what is going to happen. These are going to be the deaths, and you shouldn't be breathing on other people. You shouldn't be going out. You shouldn't be, doing all this sort of thing, and stocking up on food, and creating a whole series of fear pawns that don't
low
help.
Vibration, and in low vibration, you are creating a reality for yourself. They're getting us to do it for ourselves, and then what will we do? We'll turn to the government and go, please vaccinate us, please save us.
Please protect us, yes, please close the borders.
Yeah, please.
Or how about you open a few of those FEMA camps so that we can put some of these people in? In Washington State, they're busy going around cataloging all the shelters, and preparing people to be able to be moved to shelters, and so they can quarantine people in shelters and all this sort of hoo-ha. Guys, this is classic fear porn and herd control, herd management. But again, you don't hear them doing anything to shut down what it is that the military is doing that is causing so many young men and women to end their lives. So I think your point about the vibration is right. I think, if they can affect the vibration such that people's vibration is lower, then possibly even the illness rates can go up. But certainly the means of, as you've often heard me said, H.L. Mencken's quote, "The purpose of government is to create a never-ending series of hobgoblins with which to frighten the populace." And I'm really, trying to appeal to people in the truth-talking community to rationalize their cadence, their vibration when it comes to talking about these things. Let's just so it's on the table. Worst case scenario, hundreds of people die, maybe even thousands of people die from this thing, and not unusual numbers, but in terms of the way flus work and so on, but hundreds of the weakest people are picked off, and they die from that. That's not a catastrophe. If in the worst case scenario there was like tens of thousands or maybe even 100,000 or more that were to die, I would give credence to people thinking, okay, maybe we need to maybe we need to minimize contact with each other. But I think that that's very unlikely, very, very unlikely. And it's like the same as, oh, well, we've got the potential for meteor, strikes on Earth, so we need to build up a space force that is going to protect us from incoming, events. And it's the same as climate change. Oh, the weather might be changing. We now need to charge you or do you or restrict you or whatever because the weather is changing. Well, I'm not sure if the right term is fatalist, but we need to be a little bit more robust. We need to be a little bit more grown up about the fact that we do live inside a sort of controlled system. That system does cleanse itself every now and again. That system does have cataclysmic events that occur and so on. We know that there's been, there's volcanic eruptions, there's crazy tsunamis, there's various things that occur on the Earth or to the Earth or within the dome or the environment that we call Earth. There's some mad things that happen. There's also something called entropy. And that entropy, it means that you're in a trapped, enclosed system in which the energy of one thing is transmuted, just like this wood on the fire is transmuted from wood to heat and light and gases and some ash, and then that whole energy system just is cycled up, over and down and round, and so it goes. And in terms of, as I started talking about my avatar, my human avatar, this is just the packaging that I'm carrying the groceries home in. What I make with my groceries is dependent on me. I can make a wonderful souffle, really taste well. Andrea would make the wonderful souffle. I would eat it, but so a lot of these fear things pull us out of the divine and the spiritual higher self that we are possessed of, and into this sort of materialist 666. Well, we've got to be like agitating within the system or as part of the system to save the planet, as it were, and all of that is some sort of externalization of who you are. Save the packaging. Well, the packaging isn't so important, my friends. It's what's inside. And what's inside you.
And remember, we're creative beings, so we can choose to create an external where we are not, going to create that fear paradigm, or one where we are. The only thing I would say is I think that we need to be mindful because we are in a time of change in terms of the cyclical change, that there are certain things going on which, like our conversation yesterday, the system will choose to narrate it in a certain way, and these things have to happen to bring about certain domino effects. But it's how it gets packaged and how they can corral people into believing that they're this, when actually they're a natural cycle of things that has to happen. And and I think possibly the coronavirus is that. Now this is where we have to hopefully have, through doing that inner worked on a discernment and had that inner knowing when you know that what's being presented to you is not necessarily the truth, and that you are able to then make your own decisions. I know, obviously, if they start changing laws, like Boris Johnson's rushing to change the British laws because of the coronavirus, then obviously we live and work in this system, and we will be affected by that. But it's again how you decide to allow that to affect you. Yes, you have to navigate around it, but I think there going to be some shifts and changes this year, and they are going
Sure.
to affect us, but it's
Sure.
how you let it affect your mind.
There's changes coming, my friends. There's
Yeah.
definitely. This is not. We know that the coronavirus is a tool, a weapon. Not to overlook the deaths associated with that, but none of us are hand wringing and having news reports every day banging us about the veteran deaths. As I was saying. So and yes, does this have the scope to become some kind of pandemic? Yes, I can't exclude that. As I say, is this the big one? You've got to allow for that. But much more importantly is how much we're giving away.
I think we have to turn the volume down on the whole narrative of the coronavirus. The narrative of the coronavirus needs to turn down. Yes, there's quite possibly a coronavirus, and yes, it's quite possibly going to make people sick, and yes, there might be some deaths, just like it is every year with flu. But it's what we allow that virus to become in our mind, and that's where we have to start using our discernment and also look at it rather as an observer, and say, okay, well, this is happening. We've already seen as a consequence of the coronavirus, there's been apparently on Friday, I mean, we don't follow this, but on Friday, the financial market was at the lowest it's been since 2008. What happened in 2008? There was a financial crash. So the coronavirus will be responsible for there being this financial downward spiral. So again, it's a narrative, but it's if you take all the narrative away, are these things going to happen anyway because of something much bigger happening?
Cool. Well, I just want to say a few hellos to Tam, Australia, Mark in Melbourne. Hello, my friend. And Martin Ellen, who says I should get out in the garden. Yes, that's what we're doing. Yeah. We're going to be getting... Let's see, is that a sneeze?
Back to nature.
Alexander sneezed. I think we're going to have to shut this place down.
No masks. I've got
Masks.
the
Yeah.
masks.
Well, I've got this like little secret... not secret now, obviously. Just like this little narrative, because we're out of here on Thursday. So after that, we'll be staying at friends. Well, we'll probably hopefully ask Mary Jane and Luke for a night or two at their place, and we'll stay a night or two at my sister-in-law. But we don't have a next yet, and so one of my imaginings, because we are surrendered to much as we can be, to this being a God-inspired or a creator-inspired journey that we're meant to be on towards something important. It's already important, I know, but in terms of where this takes us to, right? Yeah, what our purpose. So one of my sort of imaginings is this area going to get shut down such that we're forced that one, they're not allowed to let people to come here and use this place on holidays, because that's what's happening from Friday. They've got big groups coming in here, so we won't be coming back here anytime soon, if ever. Once they see my documentary on what I think this beautiful old house is and its hidden history, they may feel that I've, But that aside, I wonder whether one of my possibilities that have scrolled through my mind is that this coronavirus becomes such a in people's minds becomes such a problem that they start to shut down areas of, like they've done in Italy, and this becomes one of those areas, and no one's allowed in, no one's allowed out, and we're required to stay here for a few weeks more. That wouldn't trouble me, but I'm not the author of these things, so we'll see what transpires with that. But yeah, we're going to go and do some gardening today. We're looking to do some physical work and just get the pumps going.
Well, it's also a thank you to them, isn't it? It's a thank you to them. It's a way of thanking them for the time.
They've got this big veg patch in the back, and so we're going to turn it over. Mark in Melbourne says, "Good morning, curly tops." And Astro King. Okay. Oh, they're talking about. Oh, it's Maori here. Hi, Maori. Nice to see you. I haven't got your video yet, brother. Mark, I'm sorry, and I don't know where I'm not looking in the right place. Any chance you could send me a link to it? Either email it to Trinity4Man@gmail or just put it in the comment section. I don't know where I'm going wrong with that, but I do appreciate it.
We're not the most intellectually, technically minded, are we, in that respect?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry to hear your wife has been having palpitations there, Tam. I hope that works out for you guys, yeah, my friend. I think Keith is Astro King is talking about the Schumann resonance. You said talking about resonance. He's talking about the heartbeat has gone from 7.04 to over 70.
Yeah, well, there's been a spike, hasn't there? As far as I know, I mean, I don't follow closely, but from what I've seen, there has been. I mean, this is the thing. Is so the way I see it, and again, I don't know it well. No. I'm not a studier. I don't study this closely, but is that we are moving into a different age or a different time, and there are changes happening, and so these things will be presenting themselves, and yes, they can be given a narrative that is not true.
So yeah, I mean, Maori says, I'm not sure whether coronavirus is real or a hoax, but I believe it has a hidden agenda. Yes, it has, and that has put us in fear. Yes, and in fear is the means of control.
I don't think it's only fear.
Question mark.
I don't think it's fear. I think it's something it's a domino. I think it's a domino. Question mark. Yes.
I wanted to just the fear pandemic. This is Martin. Yeah. What did
One.
Yeah, veterans and farmers, dying breeds. Well, they don't. I mean, they don't. Farming is one of those things that you're happy to have destabilized if you're looking for control, because then very few sort of sources of food remain, and of course we all have been chased off the land as the people. We've been chased off the land, or encouraged off the land, seduced off the land, and those apple trees and permanent trees that provide fruit and food, a lot of them have been taken. So re-establishing the land and making it productive for hungry people is more and more difficult. But I wanted to get to a comment that first Aussie death in Perth, apparently, according to Gracie. Yeah, I mean, there is a certain escalation, hey, bit by bit, and it's not actually taking that long. Within a week we've gone from X to Y, and I think in a week's time we could be looking at daily news reports and.
In a week's time, daily news reports.
Well, I mean, every time you look at any on YouTube,
We're not watching the news.
Yeah, well, if you look at YouTube, I look at YouTube and I look at someone's video that says coronavirus, you immediately get that, like they do with the Flat Earth one. They always put the Flat Earth Wikipedia link. Well, now they're putting a link to the World Health Organization for anything to do with coronavirus. Get your update on fear porn right here. That's what they're saying. The Rambo Jambo drop in, hello, mate. Things a lot to do with Reset, and the Georgia Guidestones have something to do with it. I mean, that was what I wanted to get back to, was someone had asked me that. Let me just give him a shout on that. Sorry. Maori was saying, do I think a Reset is trying to be engaged by, let's say, the dark forces? Well, I don't know. I mean, let me just start by saying, there should be no fear, and because I've spoken to Andrea about the reset or possible resets and the mud floods and all of this sort of thing, and it does engender a certain discontent or disconcert. Do you want to get some more coffee?
I need the cable, please.
Oh, what for?
Because my phone's dead and he wants.
Oh. It causes a certain disconcert when we talk about reset, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to cause. Why don't you plug it into the battery? Anyway, I don't want to cause people to be concerned. I've said the worst case scenario, right, or the worst in imaginings of a possibility is that some event occurs, and like that, things end for us in the meat suit. If that's to be, which is my least life, I really want this life. I really want to be able to live this life as long as I can. I want to contribute. I want to be a father. I want to be a husband. I want to be a friend. I want to be an explorer of this wonderful realm. If we are of the Creator, then the Creator, we created this place, and the Creator created this place for us to have an exploration of it. And I've only just in this last few years realized how vital that opportunity is. If you want to taste a souffle, you can't do it when you're God. You have to create a man and a woman to gather those various ingredients, a little bit like the game Minecraft. You need to be able to gather up those ingredients and enjoy that experience. And I think that we're meant to be here to enjoy some kind of experience, become richer. So I have, my feeling is that we need, I would love to have more time to do that, but I'm not the author of these things. So that's my worst case scenario. Let's put that at the back of the table for now, and say that, do I think that there is a potential reset? Well, look, if the resets are happening, my preferred thinking nowadays is that it's designed by the system. Let's just say you're a swimming pool technician. You're going to say this: you get the swimming pool to flush itself every 12 hours. You're going to set the clock for that, and off it goes. Every 12 hours it resets. Well, that might be how this is. And people who follow the stars talk about 200-year conjunctions and how they line up with other events over history as we know it. So if there's to be a reset, perhaps it's on a given time scale. The people in charge, what they want to do is to be able to maximize their survivability after such an event, so that their progeny or they themselves emerge from the ashes of such an event, and then maintain control, much like the Rothschilds and the others seem to have done. Perhaps even, as I say, that technology was from previous epochs, was held back in a cave and then eked out slowly. So the guy, it's a Scottish guy, John Logie Baird, who's credited with the invention of the television. Maybe he's given the technology he's maybe a Scottish Freemason. I don't know. I've never looked into him in depth, but just off the top of my head, you've got to wonder about the guy who invents the silicon chip, the guy who invents, other things. Someone's coming to join me.
Well,
are these things that are eked and leaked out bit by bit by the system as it prepares itself for getting the technology to a certain point.
Okay, can I tell you what I think in terms of the reset? I think not taking away from the fact that there could be, that ultimate reset, but if it's to reset, or like Dave explained yesterday to our friend Clint about, we're moving from winter into spring. If you were changing from seasons, there'd be certain cyclical things that needed to happen, but. So it's a natural thing, and it's a divine thing, and it can be that. It doesn't mean there aren't tough times, because being divine doesn't mean you have this only light and beautiful experience, although it is definitely what you decide to create for yourself. But that the dark or the system will need to narrate this, or certainly they know too what the reset means, or what this cycle means, and so they need to put a cover story on it, and to do that so that they can remain in control of the system that is here, but in knowing that astrologically the way things are going, they have to go along with that. Hence the coronavirus, hence the financial stuff. Because if you go and you listen to people who talk about astrology, these things are going to happen. There are going to be breakdowns of systems, but the powers that be will have to kind of paint a picture around that to make it look like something different, so as to continue to control people. Because if we all just broke away from the system and
well, if we all knew that the system was going to break,
yes,
then would we do what we do?
Exactly.
Probably not. We wouldn't go along with everything. We wouldn't go to our work. We would be out there just loving, and some people would be out rioting, I suppose. I guess they might argue that, well, it would just be riots in the streets and
well, we know that we can't live in a systemless society just yet, because people are very dependent on being told what to do. And we seek guidance from that system all the time as to what we should be doing. So yeah, I think that there's like two streams going on. There's the natural cycle, which we can decide to tap into or be more in tune with, or there's the system that's going to play a narrative as we go through the year and perhaps the years forward. But there's definitely changes coming, and I think this is where hopefully you have the discernment or the desire even to want to tap out of the system and then be more closely connected to nature. And remember, people are nature, so it's also about reconnecting with people. Dave and I a few years ago started walking past people and just smiling, and people really struggle to make a connection. So it's about starting to do that more, because I think in times ahead possibly we will need to rely on each other even more, and it's about reconnecting ourselves to people, which is why I think, as lovely as it is to chat to people like this, and I think it's an amazing thing, actually sitting and having chats with people. And we have had the privilege of meeting other truthers and of course people who are here have been incredibly friendly to us and incredibly helpful. And so but connecting with people on a personal level and making contacts, because it's about that community again. So I think if there's going to be a reset and we're going to have tough times, which I anticipate there will be going forward, which stream are you going to be in? Are you going to be in the sort of more natural divine stream, or are you going to be in the one that's like Matt from Quantum Content says, you're going to stare at the screen?
But what about this as a possibility? 2 stars, well done, Alexander. What about this as a possibility, that we know that the sun and the moon are vibrations, and we also know that the luminaries. I see. Oh wow.
So can I just comment before you carry on? I see Astro King says we may be telepathic. I think yes, the more that we are connecting to nature, the more that those natural abilities will come to us. I think if we are divine beings, we are powerful creators, and we will become more in tune with us depending on the person and their connection.
So I was going to say that if everything is a vibration and we are frequency emitters and we're giving off a vibration, then what if the vibration that we give off into the universe has the potential to mesh with whatever vibrations are coming from above, or affect whatever vibrations are coming from above? Some people have suggested that our cities are laid out like circuit boards. A year or two ago, I was talking about how I thought we, like the big motorways, the big highways, are, almost like an electrical circuit running around London and other places where you've got 1 million people at the same time, all giving off a certain frequency, and whether that can't be exploited. So if you think about what the system is trying to achieve, if this theory has got any merit, then you think about what the system is trying to achieve with us. It is very much trying to achieve a certain level of vibration, and that vibration of fear, or that low vibration, as we spiral, as we think about, as we experience these vibrations, then are we emitting back into the ether a certain vibratory signature that is going to exacerbate or bring about or prevent or enable a certain switch, a certain change in the way that the system operates. Yeah? And so I think maybe a reset is coming whether we like it or not. Maybe the nature of the reset is dependent on the nature of the system. It might be, so why I think it's incumbent on us to seek the higher path, the higher vibration, because even if there was a flood that washed me away tomorrow, kind of thing, I would feel that this was the right course of action, was to seek the higher vibration, because that's exactly what the system is trying to stop me from having, is a high vibration.
But even if it isn't that, even if it's just that we have to go back to nature and be helpful to each other. It means being heart expanded. To be heart expanded, you have to be high vibration. When we're low vibration, from our experience, when we're feeling that lower vibration, we're closed, we're snowman. I see. We tend to be closed and
Maori says hello is easy.
yes. See.
Maori says it's definitely getting close to the end of time for the dark ones. Yeah, I mean,
I tend to say it's more not end times for the dark ones, more a rebalance.
Rebalancing, or and
nature is going to do what it needs to do to rebalance.
Because the way we think about it, Maori, is that we each have dark and light in us. The healthy cycle of our world is it has a night and a day. It has a winter and a summer, and I think the lower nature that we see expressed in the business world, in pornography and all these sorts of things, is actually a nature that we all have, and so the dark nature is, it's like each of us has, we have this free will, I think. So each of us has the choice, but we get brought into a world that seduces us or encourages or demands on us to be in business. It offers us all these baubles and excitements if we go to work and we do the various biddings of the system. And so I have the choice myself to go and work in a bank, or to go and to be a salesman of something that I don't care about, but I know that there's good money to be made in it. I have that option. I admit, about 10 years ago, I said to a friend, I'm kind of good at writing. Maybe it wasn't as much as 10 years ago. I think it was when I was writing my book, so maybe 7 years ago. I said, but there's no money to be made in writing a book like this. Maybe I should write porn, because I've got quite an active imagination. So imagine I was making money writing porn and stories, and encouraging people thereby to read it and
Promoting
it. So promoting that. That would still be me, the same guy, but obviously engaging more with my lower, darker elements. So in that way, I have the choice to, hey, let me try and write something. Actually, while we were given 80 quid yesterday, which is really, really kind. And someone else sent 20 quid. So I just wanted to say thank you both to Greg Hardesty for the $80. That will go a long way. And Colin Scott, thank you very much, my friend. You know, the thing is that people are giving me money where I know that for them it's a lot of money. And you have to be humbled by that and very grateful. So, but Colin had said to me, you know, why don't you write a book? And he's not the first person to say that about flat Earth. And in fact, I started writing a book in 2016 about a guy who has a dive school who finds out some information that leads him to a flat Earth story. And so I'm not sure exactly how I wanted to write, but I've just not had the peace of mind because, you know, my life has been a bit of a drastic treadmill over the last few years, going along this way, refusing to write the porn for the easy money instead of trying to seek the higher road. And maybe this is where it comes to is that, you know, humanity is given a choice. You know, seek the higher road for yourself, or eventually nature will force that from you because, you know, maybe this is what a cataclysm like this brings about. It brings about humiliation. When I'll tell you a quick story that comes to my mind. When I was a youngster going through Angola during my time in the war. So, you know, I spent a year of my 2-year national service. I spent a year in the combat area, and 3 months of that I spent in combat. And in order to get into the combat zone itself, or this area where these masses of forces were coming down, communist-supported forces were coming down from the north, we had to travel a few hundred miles into Angola. And as we did so, we encountered people who were living in huts in the most basic way that you can possibly imagine. You know, many miles away from any kind of electrical systems, toileting, shops, you name it, just in the middle of the forest. And when we came across, I have this one image in my mind of coming across this little collection of 3 or 4 huts, and these skinny people, illiterate kind of people, coming out of their huts as in these massive 20-ton steel armored vehicles came past their houses, through the forest and past their houses. And I wonder whether, you know, these humble people who have very, very little and who have to rely on each other and have to rely on nature totally to survive, whether these people aren't the remnants of a previous flood, a previous change, a previous end times change. And those that survive are forced by nature to forget all their materialism, to forget all the stuff that they have gotten so caught up in, and start with nothing. So all I can say is that, you know, if there's a thing coming, the best thing you can do is be prepared spiritually, because physically, I mean, you know, obviously I've done a lot of physical preparation, and I, you know, sometimes do gardening and woodworking and things like that, which are, for me, you know, giving me those sorts of survivalist skills that, were I to survive such an event, then I would be, you know, physically fairly well prepared for it.
Can I talk about the light and dark for a minute?
Yeah.
Can you go?
Yeah.
He's on apples. Yes, my baby, apples.
Apples.
When
Wow.
talk about light and dark, you know, and I understand why people are like, oh, you know, it's going to be end times with the dark. From my experience, if I just look at myself and I look at my light and dark, something that I've had to confront is my own darkness, and that's kind of hard, because you have to be accountable for. I have to be accountable for the decisions that I've made along the way. actually I have to forgive myself for those decisions that I've made, that I've chosen to participate in, and that have had consequences, and I, so, you know, and a lot of the time we don't want to look at that part of ourselves, we don't want to acknowledge that part of ourselves, but it is part of who we are, is part of what brings us to this point, and it's what makes us human. And also by participating in those, or being in that dark time, being in those dark times, I've then been able to make different decisions, and then also now of late to heal from some of those decisions. You know, I'll just use one example. When I was younger and I had the two younger kids, I definitely wasn't as present as I could be, and you know, and fairly desperate probably, in terms of my own emotional turmoil that was going on inside me, and so I wasn't the parent that I would like to say I was proud of. Obviously that has changed somewhat, but I've had to be accountable for that. I've had to forgive myself for that, and by doing so, then I'm able to release that, or certainly embody that darkness, and then it doesn't have that same power over me. So I wonder whether, when we say it's the end time for the darkness, that's not the case, but the dark needs to be brought into balance, just as night and day. You know, it's not a matter of eradicating them. And if we, you know, if we're angry or you know, I'm not saying we shouldn't have boundaries and say that's not right, and this is, you know, that's wrong, and this is right, and that's dark, and this is light, and obviously I'm not excusing the dark's behavior, but at the same time, we're not going to get rid of it, and to detangle ourselves from it, we have to look at it in the eye and then forgive it. So that we are able to raise our own vibration and not be in war with it. I think we give the system the steam that it needs by being engaged with it, and it does that by the likes of the coronavirus, where it, you know, we're pretty much going to them, to the system, and saying, please help us. We need you to, you know, do A, B, and C for us. So that's my thing on the dark. I mean, you know, will nature just naturally take care of that to a degree anyway, as it does? You know, we were talking about fires yesterday. That, you know, fires are a natural thing in forests, and nature will just, you know, it doesn't resist it. It just happens. The cycle just happens, and after that, it brings about new life. So, is that just a natural cycle of events?
Yeah, there's certain seed pods that will only open after the event of a fire.
Yeah.
You did it. Well done with a Y. Sorry, we have to manage the
It's
little boy.
It's a bit like in your body. You know, you have to have bacteria. Your body requires bacteria, and there has to be a balance of bacteria in your body. And you can't, if you remove all the bacteria. It's a bit like, you know, they've got us to now want to put, you know, sanitizer on our hands and on our counters, and you're just getting rid of everything. Are we not actually, through that, have we not actually created our own demise, where we're actually allowing there to be an open playing field when it comes to actually bacteria? That we need some of the bacteria there to help us fight against, you know, against the illnesses. So I think it's about having the balance,
and like, you know, I mean, whilst I deplore some of the worst aspects that we hear about, you know, Pizzagates and all these sort of things, child trafficking and, you know, death and murder and war and all the horrible things, and the toxins in the system and the damage to children and so on. These are awful things. But in a way, without these horrors, some of us might never have gone, oh, I've got to shake off this crazy world and I've got to seek my higher self. And if we were set a mission by God, or we are God, have on a mission, then do we not need to have our buttons pushed and our tests tested, so as that we exemplify, we through the aegis of the fire of this horrible setup, that we actually then find the higher self within. And I, for one, was 45 and just kind of bumbling along and watching too much porn, and as an example. And I like to pick on that because I know a lot of us boys have come through a similar kind of relationship. When we were teenagers, a little bit of porn, all we got was maybe an overused magazine or something from a friend whose dad had a Playboy magazine, and because I was in South Africa, so there was less of it around, but there was that. And then we got to all the Pornhub and RedTube and so on, and wall to wall, seemingly endless porn. And so it's just and the same is true with food. This endless wall-to-wall junk food, and you see it now. We're in Norfolk, and you go around the supermarkets here, and you see lots of young couples who are already size 20, size 25. Massive people already, and this is just another example of the exploitation of the self, or the ability, if you like, to choose to exploit the self and others. Or the option then, once you've seen that exploitation, to step away from it. And we need that. We need that fire. We need that causation. We need that causation to. We need that causation to get us to. You know what I mean? So it's like if you haven't gone through the hardship and the horror of this thing, then you're not willing to kind of get off your sofa and be the higher.
Well, it's
being.
Accountability. We need to start being accountable. We can't go, that has to go away.
Yeah.
That dark has to go away.
Blame the food industry for my obesity.
I will be better. It doesn't mean, yes, they are offering you every single bad food item, and we are definitely falling prey to that, and on the internet you can go and get any sort of form of porn that you choose, but surely we also have to be accountable. Surely that's the point. The point is that you are then making the decision that and I remember saying to my children when they were younger, when you're in a situation, if you have this feeling in your stomach that it's not right, then you need to find a way to get out of it. And if you need to say, I need to go home and see my mother wants me to come home, then use that excuse. But that it's a feeling, you use your feelings to know whether something's right or wrong. And we've kind of switched that feeling off, and are now not accountable for making those choices. Yes, that the system does offer us to the extreme. Yeah.
I'm reminded, Floko, of who is between 3 and 4. It's fascinating watching a child learn the world at that age. It is fascinating, and it's amazing how much. I mean, he's been through the alphabet over 1,000 times now, and he's still learning it and loving to learn it. Something. Hearts. Wow.
Sorry, I'm just reading. I'm not just staring at the screen. I'm reading some of the comments. Zizi says Mari. Something not good is coming. I felt it for years. Now my mind and soul are preparing for what is to come. But gut feeling is it ain't going to be a sausage sizzle.
No, but maybe it's a good thing, you see. Maybe we need to reframe this. I saw a comment from this time about how, it is up to the truth community somehow. I can't remember exactly what you were saying, but we have an opportunity now. We can just to think that something bad is coming and it's horrible. Well, you might as well be, and I do respect your opinion, my friend, but we might as well be following the coronavirus and feeling the fear of that and going, there's something bad is coming, and I think. I'm a proponent of mud flood, so I'm not someone who shies away from the idea that events occur and they could be cataclysmic, black deaths and so on. But I also think that that if we take that on as fear, then we're just falling into the trap of having a lower vibration, fearful kind of outlook.
What if these times,
Wow.
just as the journey that Dave and I have been on since well, not since we left our home, because it started happening before that, but that actually what we've learned, what I've learned, and I know Dave will be the same, is we've been taught, we've found the perseverance in ourselves. We found the strength. We found our that love for the more natural things.
Simpler things.
We've gone back to those core human instincts or feelings or attributes, and what if that's what it's going to bring about? That it's going to bring back connection to people and to nature and to ourselves, and yes, you can. The system will still be there, and so you can by all means go and be in that realm and be under that fear umbrella, and or you can take it as an opportunity to get back to those really pure aspects of us as human beings, and yes, to get that, you have to go through a bit of a rough time, and you know, and Dave and our journey has been that. It's not, you know, I don't want to make it into something it's not, but it's been tough, but through that tough experience we have gained so much, but we wouldn't have if we'd still been in our little house in the suburbs, you know, fearing paying the rent and the bills. It required us to have a little bit of a roller coaster ride, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah, and it's not been an easy ride by any stretch. This has aged me. It has been hard, but I think it's meant to be this way. I just saw a comment from Miss J asking people to chuck a few quid in the Trinity for Man can on PayPal. I thank you for saying that. We were talking about yesterday about, you know, asking people for money. I do it now.
Zenith wants to know your email address.
Okay, Zenith, I'll fire that over to you. But it's Trinity4Man, the number 4 at Gmail. Trinity4Man at gmail.com.
I think we'll try and put it in the chat.
Yeah, so because I've never been very good at that, and of course I'm like any bloke, you know, we're a bit proud. Well, any woman too, but like blokes, the last thing we want to do is talk about our, you know, our financial kind of issues. You know, it's one of those things. But it helped going on the Global tour and getting used to there, because it felt uncomfortable then, saying, you know, can people chuck in money into the tin to keep the tour on the road? But it wasn't personal to me. It was more like this bigger tour and people's tour and so on. So this is a little tighter on the screw, because it's like, oh, it's for me and, you know, my thing and so on. And why should people, you know, other people sitting in their regular 9-to-5 jobs going, well, I've got to stay in my 9-to-5 job. Get back to the 9-to-5 if you don't mind. Well, I have said this before. I'm willing to do that. I do work hard when I get the opportunity to do work, and when we have ourselves a house and a place and what have you, then I hope to generate income for myself that I don't have to ask for money. But I mean, at the moment, right now, this week we are a week overdue for paying our locker. All of our stuff is in a 7x10 foot locker. It costs us £180 a month. We don't have the money to pay that yet, and in a few days' time they will charge me £15 for late payment,
but
and then all of
equally,
that.
We surrender to what that will bring, and that we have to know that whatever we need, we will get. So
Yeah.
But we had an interesting conversation obviously we had a long conversation with Clinton Summer, which was aired, and I think after we'd stopped, we spoke about. Dave just wants to show you his book.
No, keep talking. But I've done what I've done is we went to the lockup the other day, and I got a box of books out. There's 22 books, and I am. I know that you guys are not necessarily interested in my military story. This is me
It is
Yeah.
a good story, by the way.
on
I've
this,
read
on
it.
this Russian
and
tank.
it's readable, and it's actually got all sorts of emotions
Yeah,
in it,
yeah, yeah,
laughter and sadness
Yeah, I've never hidden my name, and that MMM stands for Military Merit. It's a post-nominal award that I got for bravery in combat. By the way, I only found out about it 25 years after the combat, but that's neither here nor there. I just for the fun of it, I used to sell. I mean, this is available on Amazon for £20. I get 50 pence of that £20. Jeff Bezos of Amazon gets 10 pounds of that £20. So if I used to sell them when I was still in 2014, when the book was first published, and I was still asleep. I had a website in my name, and I would sell them around the world for £25, which included the postage, because to America and South Africa and places like that, it's like £12, Australia, places like that. So what I thought, just for fun, is if you want to, if you give us a contribution of more than £33 or more, then I would put one in the post to you. Just send me your address, and I'd happily put one in the post to you. And I would sign it if you wanted to sign it. Anyway,
so on this
that's this book.
note, obviously Dave's wanting to give something in exchange, but we were talking about this energy flow, and actually my son said in a very sweet way, like I said earlier, I wasn't always present as a mum because of my own emotional turmoil, and as a consequence, I've left my two older ones with their own set of wounds in terms of mummy not being as openly loving as I could have been, and so they find it difficult to take on things. I know this because this is something that I have had to work on, and I passed it down generationally to my children. I'm hoping I can turn that around now that I have done some healing and whatever. But the point is that it's when you feel unworthy, is the ability to receive an energy, i.e. love, or money, because money is an energy, really, a form of energy, that we're great at giving but not really great at receiving, but actually that it's an important flow of energy, that there's a give and receive, and actually that not being able to receive is it's sort of breakdown of the flow of give and receive. And my son, like I said, he said it very, very sweetly.
Eloquently.
Well, it was quite sweet, really. He said, I'm learning to accept help because I've been told it makes me more likable. And I thought that was very interesting. So we as humans tend to, we like to be able to give, so we like people to be able to receive and have that energy exchange. And that can be through anything. That can be through a kind deed, that can be through a kind word, that can be through money, that can be through time, but we have to be able to give and receive. So this has been certainly for me has been something that that we've had to learn to be able to receive graciously and
Be humble.
and we are very grateful for all the help, and if we aren't already helping, exchanging the energy back to you with our time and our thoughts, then I'm hoping that in times to come we will be able to be giving more,
Because we are committed to this truth, to this journey, wherever it may lead us, and we don't know where it's going, but
truth is that none of us really.
Yeah, we do think that this is inspired by something above us, something higher than us, and
we seek each day, or we attempt each day to keep going in this right and righteous direction towards a higher vibration.
It's funny,
a higher being. And obviously, sorry, to just finish the point, I think to not only not for ourselves so much as for the collective. Green, my darling.
Come show you.
Excuse me, but for the collective.
When Dave was saying that every day we seek to or attempt to, attention is, it's like, I made me think, we talk about a reset, but actually every morning after the dark of the night, we have an opportunity to reset ourselves, and a new day is a new beginning, and another chance to make a difference in our own lives and in others. So we talk about this big massive reset, and of course there's the macro and the micro. So but yeah, every day is, they say even down to the micros, every breath, every time you breathe in and out, that's a reset, really. So yeah, we're just seeing it in a larger scale. And sorry, I'm just gonna yeah, Mark, you're probably right. I have to say that that's something I am working on, but also I am a little bit deprived of female chat, especially here. And as you know, women have got plenty to talk about. So, Dave, let me do that.
Yeah, Mommy's going to help you.
What do you need, Mum?
I'm failing right there to satisfy my son. Yeah, I heard Andrew say that every morning is an opportunity for us to reset and start again, and not give ourselves too much of a hard time about yesterday, whatever yesterday was or wasn't.
This is not what you did.
He wants a new word, but I'm not quite sure what word he wants.
Okay, but this is not what you do it.
Anyway, yeah, Ms. Chimes says thank you for sharing. And like a girl at the party that loves to talk, and Dave is the guy. Oh, mate. Yeah, welcome to my side. We were in Switzerland when the year Alexander was conceived. We went on a holiday drove around Europe, and ended up in Switzerland because a friend had a house there, and we spent a few days there, and we've gone up this mountain. The cable car and a train and what have you, and I'm all sort of full of beans and coming back down, and I swing into this Australian accent, right, because I do love playing with accents. We've had a housemate, Carl, many years ago, who was from Melbourne, and no, Sydney. I've had a few Australian friends. Anyway, I have a few Australian. He's from Sydney, and so I used to love messing around with the Aussie Echo, and so I jump on this train, and for some reason I throw straight into oh mate, yeah, that was a really good crack. That was awesome. Anyway, and it turns out that there's these Australian rugby players, student kind of rugby players, all congregated at one end of the train, and they heard me, and it was so embarrassing because we had to sit on the train for like 20 minutes or so, and I already knew that the earth was flat, and I already knew about a whole bunch of things about our divinity, so that I didn't have the courage just to simply go up to them and say, hey guys, I was only having a little bit of fun. I meant no harm by it. Anyway, I do like accents, and I find them interesting on the ear. But it's, when I play on an accent, it's certainly not because I'm trying to be derogatory because someone has a different accent, because we all have an accent to someone else's ear. It's just one of the interesting variables that our nature has given us. So yeah, you're right though, mate. She can talk for two of us, and but it's great because she's getting a platform to also talk and so on, and I think she's right.
What?
I mean, it takes a while to build this up. I mean, it was a few years ago. I said, I need to go and actually build a platform where I can share ideas with people.
Actually, I said, please go and talk to people about this.
Now I'm getting grief, mate. See what you started. You started something here. It's good to see me laugh. Yeah, it is. Honestly, there's not been enough laughter in our lives of late, and it's been a hard ride, and I hate to mumble and grumble about it because some people are having much harder rides than me.
Well, and we chose to do this, didn't we? It is a
And
choice.
yes, and we
could
did.
go
We did.
back to
We
the
did.
system.
We had this choice forced on us. No, we did choose this, I suppose, and but it just, I guess it's the homelessness thing. I felt myself feeling in this few weeks here. I felt myself feeling happier because I haven't felt the insecurity of being unable to provide a home for my family. And then obviously having a wife who is even more, who needs a home even more than I do as a mother and a female. Their first nature is homemaking.
Well, and I'm a Cancerian, so.
And she's a Cancerian. That means whatever that means.
Well.
There's not been much laughter, but as I say, this is the shopping bag that we're taking the groceries home in, and we're trying to make something really tasty. So hopefully, today is my older sister's birthday. She's a year older than I am, almost to the day. My birthdays are in a week, actually. And I sent her a message. We haven't communicated for quite a while now. Not Christmas, not last birthday, and but she told me to shut up back in 2016, and she was tired of hearing my shit. So I sent her a message of love and conciliation and so on, and I genuinely have in my heart this hope that my family and I reconcile our differences and realize that actually we kind of all want the same thing, and that none of what I'm saying is designed to create division, heartache, and hurt and so on. It may cause people to feel that way, but that's not. That's I'm just delivering the message, not trying to create that hardship. In fact, it's the antithesis of what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create a world around me of love. Of fellowship, of community, of connection and connectivity, not division and separation. And our world is all about divide and conquer, divide and separate, and step on your brother and your sister. So I have these high hopes that eventually my life is going to be a much more joyous experience than it has been of late, and and that's all good for us, and that's going to become a story that's true for many more of us, and then eventually the horrors of maybe we will turn our weapons into plowshares, and we will and we will end some of the horrible things that seem to be going on in the world. And I don't mean the coronavirus. I mean, some of the other things that you hear reported about, things that happen to children and so on. But as Maori was saying earlier on, the dark has to go away. But we feel like it's more about the dark being put in its rightful place, and that the spring will come, and that the bright flowers will grow, and that there will be plenty for all, and so on. Anyway, I'm getting a bit melancholy. I do. Actually having a little boy, and not laughing enough is something that we're both conscious of. It's like, we're imprinting on him either a happy world or one in which people around him are seldom laughing and smiling, and so I'm mindful of that, and something that the other night, 2 nights ago, we had such a good giggle at bedtime. It was like, wow, we do need to try and do that much more. Watch the space. We're hopefully on a divine journey, and it's going to.
And we're excited.
It's going to pay out.
Whatever comes, we're actually quite excited about.
Yeah.
The future.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll find the love. We'll find the joy. Give me joy in my heart, keep me burning. Give me joy in my heart. There's a little bit of Sunday school for you. Guys, I'm gonna get off and do my thing. Yeah. Zenith, ABC Deadlock, you've always contributed to truth. Always appreciated. Yeah, Zenith was definitely, I think it turns out I didn't see all the numbers at the end of the Globe Light Tour, but I think you had to be in the top 3 contributors to that effort. So, and I know you've done plenty of other things along the way, and of course you're on your own important journey. Zenith did like a 70-day or 60-day water fast last year, so massive respect for that. I'm sure you can tell people a few things about that. Yeah, and lovely for you guys to stop by. Thanks for the thumbs up, guys. I appreciate it. Who's that? Skin something? I can't read the name so well. Gracie Dane says most people I think know that I'm crazy. Well, you're not crazy, Gracie.
We're all a little crazy.
You're not crazy. I have small little daffodils just arrived. It snowed. It's been a storm, but they're looking pretty and so strong. Enjoy them. 70 days, and it's easier than you think, according to Zenith. Trinity4man@gmail is PayPal. Thank you. We are actually, Luke's here, and he's said, why haven't you set up the Patreon? And of course, we can't do it without a fixed address. So he is going to set up using his address for us, and so we will have a Patreon in the next few days.
The other phone, Daddy's on his phone.
Yeah. So we'll set that up soon. And there was some comment I wanted to, someone who said, I couldn't read their name. Skunk Water Bait and Tack. Hello, how are you? That's a new name. I haven't really seen you before, I don't think. Welcome. Oi, oi. Here's Query Medicine. You're both water signs? Yes, we are. Yeah, this is a crystal. I actually got this from Andrea and our friend Cosmic Cat. Sure, she and Andrea chipped in to buy me this last year when I was struggling to deal with what I felt was like a spiritual attack on me, where I'd let this guy. I mentioned it actually on Jaren's show the other night. After the thing we did in the Hyde Park, where it went viral on the Guardian's story, I had a guy approach me, and he came straight for me, and he immediately offered me a session of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, for free. And I went along, thinking that it didn't matter. I didn't know this guy from Adam, but he was made all these claims about having worked with the South African cricket team and helped them with their confidence and stuff like that. And as a public speaker, I would need this and so on. And so I went along, but afterwards, immediately afterwards, I was giddy. I walked out of the hotel and nearly fell over. And then almost immediately, I was starting to get these horrible ideas in my head. Terribly, terribly dark thoughts started coming into my mind that I've never had in all of my life. And I feel now like that was a form of wizardry that was performed on me. And I could actually, because he'd worked on my left arm, he'd been doing these kind of shaking things on my left arm for about an hour and saying all of these things and saying, oh, let me evaluate your confidence or your certainty. No, that's zero. It's really low. It's really low. And so he was sort of, in a way, somehow projecting into me this idea that all of my my confidence that I'd been building up to be this to go out and do these things in public was zero, and I started and I lost my confidence to go out in public. Actually, I really struggled with it for a long time. I'm not sure I'm over it completely anyway yet, and I could still sometimes feel it in my arm, but thankfully the horrible ideations, violent, terrible, dark thoughts seem to be abating. I seem to be getting on. I seem to be expelling whatever that was from me. Why did I just talk about that?
The crystal. So
the crystal. Yeah,
I got crystal shop with Kat.
Yeah, we went to a crystal shop with Kat, and she was a shop she knew and frequented, and we walked in, and the lady said for some reason, this is before I was even paying for anything or having it, she touched the back of my neck, because I'd been having terrible pain in the back of my neck, a lot of like strange stiffness, and she said, what did she say about that?
She said there was an opening that had somebody worked on you and left an opening in your neck. Had you been having neck pain?
She asked me if I'd been having neck pain before I even identified that. She was like, you know, and I said, yeah, well, yeah. It's like, there's an opening in you that someone has left.
There's allowed
dark entities to creep on you, get on you.
To attach to you.
We live in an electromagnetic universe. The mainstream science acknowledges that 0.05% of everything we can see is just a fragment, or everything we can see, 0.05% of everything that is. So we know that at the sort of quantum level or the spiritual level, there are dark and light entities going on all around us. And I think, let's just say you're a prostitute and you work in the dark streets, and you can become attached a lot of dark entities through the clients that you engage with, who bring their own darkness to you. And I think that's possibly what happened, was I allowed a certain amount of darkness to come into me. And it's been just one of my struggles, if you like, one of my battles that I've had to work through along this way. As Andrew keeps saying, everything happens for a reason, and perhaps I was meant to. Because I was talking to Jaron. I was watching Jaronism and those guys back in probably 2015, and back then I was like, I need to be. Oh, here's the paper, mother. I need to be one of the people talking for this community, because I feel like I have that gift and I have that role to play. Here's your pen, darling. But for various reasons of you want the yellow? You get the yellow, it's over there. For various reasons, the world, my life has conspired to prevent me from being in that place at that moment, at that right time, to take advantage of those sort of moments. But again, maybe that's been happening for a reason, because in 2016, 2017, I was like, I want to be out there making a noise, but I was also thinking, well, maybe I'm meant to be just quiet here so that I'm not getting targeted by the system who was trying to stop this movement of truth. So be that as it may, I'm wearing. Well, that's why I got this crystal. It was a form of protection and self-healing or healing. Funny enough, this comes to mind. I was wearing, when I first started speaking in Speaker's Corner, I was actually wearing like a rope. Like when we were in the army, guys used to make these crosses out of rope. And when I got back into the veteran sort of community in 2014-15, I was given it as a gift by a guy, a really nice guy, Theo. Now, I said to him at the time, this isn't like a Christian thing. He's, no, so it's just we used to shape these into these crosses. Well, then I wasn't so troubled about whether it was or wasn't. But when I was talking in Speaker's Corner, I realized that by wearing the cross, I was segregating myself from a whole swathe, the majority of people there, because the majority of people in the world are not Christians, actually. the majority of the people, all of the people in the world are of the Creator, but a large proportion, the largest proportion, are not Christians. And Christianity, much as I love what this, I love the idea of the Christ-like or the higher self. Christianity can just simply be another club. And we're staying here at this Christian place, and it does feel like, if you belong to the local church, you're more likely to get a job here. If you're in the Christian club, then you're going to fit in here. And I'm not picking on Christianity, because if this was a Muslim establishment, it'd be unlikely that they'd accept me unless they thought I was one of them, as it were.
But the Pope recently said you're all in the same club.
Well, apparently the Pope has just admitted that all religions lead to the same God. And I have to finally agree with him that, that's what I think. There is one creation, one creator of this world that we're in, and we're all of that. So Jesus, I think Mark, if he's still there, will know the verse probably, but is clear, don't take no idols, and that means Billy Idol, the man, or idolize this guy because he was Gandhi or whatever. It's not about idolizing that man. It's about recognizing that you are like that man, potentially all that God ever expressed. So for me, the Christian cross ended up feeling like an idol, and as people say, the cross is the cube unfurled, and the Jews, they're into cubism, and of course the Muslims, they march around the Kaaba stone, which is another black cube. So for me, and I know that I would have much more traction with a bigger number of people if I was to jump on the I'm a Christian bandwagon. And I also hate the idea that people might not want to hear what I have to say simply because I'm not willing to attach myself to one of the doctrines of our world. But I think it's the path is sometimes extremely lonely, but I'm willing to say that I'm needing to say the things that are sometimes unsayable, and that is that there should be no clubs. The choosing of teams is where the problems begin. And even if we call ourselves the Flat Earth Club, we are unwittingly, I think, creating like a division and a separation between our brothers and sisters who can't see. So we are all one, my friends. It is all love, and we come from nature. We come from Mother Nature. We come from Gaia, from the Creator, from God, from Allah. We come from one source, and I put a comment in the in someone's chat the other day. I said, what did Neo do in the movie? How did he change the world? And Nathan Oakley, 1980, commented that he went back to source. Well, I've been thinking about that afterwards, and of course I don't know whether that means that the only way we change the world is to die, and when we die we take a higher vibration back with us, which changes the source, which changes some of the source coding, so that our world becomes a brighter place. Maybe that's when it happens, is that you take a higher vibration into the core of the source, then the source is forced to change. Or maybe it's simply that we're feeding energy constantly to source all the time, as I said earlier on, like a circuit board. And our cities are, and our sporting events and our major disasters are timed so that we inject a certain vibration up into the source. And if that's true, then all we can do, or the most important thing we can do, is to find that higher vibration, so that when we're injecting energy up into source, we're injecting that love, and from that love we can heal the world, and we can bring more springtime, more, make it a better place for you and me. Love. Mark in Melbourne says love is the club that I'm thinking of. I love that, Mark. Love is the club. Join the love club. Now we're getting back to.
You wouldn't want to put that on YouTube.
Yeah, we're getting back.
Imagine what you'd attract.
Yeah, we're getting it. Oh my lord. Yeah, the love. Yeah, no, love is it. Love is all you need, and you know, if we can, you know, and that's the thing is, coronavirus, fear, armies, fear, police, fear, government, fear, you know, tsunamis, mud floods, EMPCO, you know, plasma apocalypse, fear, and staring at screen and not enough love. So, and just a thought actually that, you know, despite us being so like pissed off with the world, because people's greed has been exploited, the world has got to a point where technology has allowed me to talk to you, and that is a fantastic thing. You know, so when we're dogging on the world and going, you know, the world is so like bad and what have you, it has brought us, whether the system wanted this or not, or, you know, it's just a fortunate side effect of you know, all of that's gone in the past, is that we now are talking to each other. We are now sharing information and learning stuff that we could never have imagined just 20 or 30 years ago, in terms of our access to information, our access to fantastic thinkers, fantastic other souls, and so we have a lot to be grateful for, and a lot to be thankful for, and much less to be fearful of. And of course, if you managing your own health and your own situation and so on, your own life, and you're doing so in a more and more conscious way as we move through this process, then for me that seems like we're winning. We're gaining the things that the system never wanted us to gain. So I'm going to end this stream on a grateful note, a thankful note, and a loving note, and say, you know, I thank you for giving me your time, and I thank you for helping me, encouraging me to be the better man, and you know, the higher self. And of course, you know, you're supporting me with your thumbs up, and for some of you who've been able to support us with a bit of financial assistance, and sometimes some accommodation or whatever, then wow,
yeah,
the gratitude is never ending, and it's sincere, and it'll never be forgotten, because this story of ours, I think, is going to be an interesting one, and this is just a chapter in the book of how we, along with yourselves, have gone from troglodyte, knuckle dragging, you know, Darwinians to towards, anyway, and hopefully eventually, this sort of much higher spirited, higher moral kind of being. And by the way, while I'm talking about morals and higher and so on, I'm never judging. I'm never looking at somebody else and saying, or no, I wouldn't say never, because that might be a little bit too, I'm not that perfect, but
we try not to be.
You know, and I've lived with prostitutes. You know, I've had, you know, I've friends on the dark side of life, and I am, you know, I'm one of those people who's never going to say, oh well, you shouldn't watch porn. I think that, or never going to be like, you should never drink alcohol, or you should never do this, or you should never do that, because the point is that if we're coming home, if we've got a bag of groceries and we're bringing those groceries home to make the souffle, and the first time you make the souffle it doesn't work out, you go back to the store and you buy the ingredients and you try again. And I think that's really what it has to be. And until you get the opportunity to make the souffle 3, 4, 5 times, you know, you can't be expected to get it right. And as I've said to my children, like, you're here to experience this world. And once you've experienced this world, you hopefully will make the choices that lead you to the higher self.
That's why you have to have duality. You have to have the dark so that you can find the light.
Yeah, and so this idea of living in a purist world in which there is no dark is perhaps a little bit of an
It's not where we're at
It's-
cyclically or in terms of humanity anyway, is it?
It's a hot and cold, a dark and light, system. It's a red and blue system. That's how electrics work. It needs a negative and a positive, and a neutral. And we're meant to find that neutral, I think, somewhere in between the negative and the positive.
Perhaps there's other realms where that's different, but certainly here.
Yeah, because I always think of, actually where we are at the moment is where a lot of the Puritan in America, there was this big Puritan movement, and a lot of it stems from this local village. You wouldn't believe it, but, was it Abraham Lincoln or George what?
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln, his family is from this local village here. George Bush's family is connected to this local village, and would you believe it, Bill Gates, the horror, is also connected to this village. You got to wonder, but it's all stems back to a Puritan ideal. Just say no, just say no, just say no. No, well, I'm saying, well, go for it, try it. And then once you've scraped your knees with it for long enough, hopefully you'll make that souffle perfect. Yeah? What do you think about that? I should just say a last few goodbyes.
Well, we all need to try and
keep
make our
going.
own souffle. Give it a go. Hey, it's.
Yeah, I like that, Sal. Morris says the third path is balance. We look at the yin yang line, and I have to give Bro Sanchez credit for this, but I always looked at the yin yang as being two colors, black and white. Well, it's black and white, and then there's that sort of border that separates the black and the white, and that border is the balance. And in my conception of the universe, with a cold and a hot Taurus energy, and then a balancing third energy, the heart or green energy that sort of is in between the two, the neutrality. Because storms will blow trees down, and you can gnash and weep about that, or realize, well, in the blowing down of that tree, it's now going to feed 1 million bugs, and it's going to nourish the soil, and it's going to make way for new trees to come up. And as I burn this wood, I know that I'm not wasting wood. I'm returning wood to the ether, or its energy to the ether, and it's recycling and coming back in some other form. So, we can become too emotionally invested, perhaps, in whether this world, how this world.
Can I say why I think
balance.
that is? Because
Yeah.
actually we have to find the balance within.
Yeah.
I think there's so within, so without, or.
My friend Jack's Dreaming
macro,
just
micro.
stopped in and said hi. The Dark Night of the Soul, a tough one.
Yeah.
We know about
I
that.
think you have to face your own darkness and bring your own neutrality in your heart.
Maori's made a good point there. I know dark well, but it has helped me see light and hope. Exactly, my brother.
Yeah,
Exactly. And it is until you, as I saw in the basement of that building in London 6 months ago when I was doing that plumbing work. Hello, darkness, my old friend. And it is that we need to have lain with the darkness. We have to have lain with the wolves before we can kind of see the light. But the mistake I think the Puritans made is to say that now I've walked through the darkness, I'm going to apply a stricture to you that stops you, that would shun you for going and drinking alcohol, or for sleeping with a prostitute. That I think is how can I look at you and pass judgment on you? And I'm not in any position as a human man to pass a judgment on you, firstly. And secondly, why is it because I've tread over those coals that I have to stop everyone else behind me from treading over those coals and having their own experience of this? And in that way, you've got to wonder whether, let's just say we were able to turn a key and say, turn the light on, and there was no more dark. Would the millions and millions and millions of people who have yet to walk this path be immediately turned on to the light, or would they be in a state of, well, we don't know what to do with that? Because I speak for myself when I realize that, my own, the wonderful people, the serious people, the intelligent people, the spiritual people that are listening to some of what I have to say would not be listening to me 10 years ago. They wouldn't be interested in that guy, or I wouldn't be interested in them. I wouldn't want them to hear what I had to think or say so much. So I had to walk this path. I had to come through this way to get to this position. And I think each of us has that same responsibility or deserves the same opportunity. If let's just say a mud flood came and washed us all away today, would some of those people who haven't done the soul work and the spiritual work, including myself, haven't got high enough up that tree, would we have to be reset and start again or something like that? Or if I said, okay, look, you've got 10 more years, and in that 10 years you can develop your soul to a point where you achieve that thing, then you'd probably say, yeah, give me the 10 more years, or give me 100 more years, or give us 1,000 more years, so that more and more of humanity can move themselves individually from dark to light. But without the dark, how can you have light? You need dark to have light. So let's not fear the dark, but let's acknowledge its existence and perhaps the value of it. That's not to excuse hurting children. It's not to excuse sending boys off to war or girls off to war or poisoning people in various ways. None of that is excusable.
It's like when you forgive someone, it doesn't absolve them of their behavior. It actually releases you release yourself from the emotional attachment to that experience. And I think it's the same with the darkness. You have to find a way to forgive the darkness, and that's not to absolve it. That is to release our attachment to it. And the same is through your own darkness. You have to go and look at that the dark experiences you had, and be able to look them in the eye and forgive yourself for them.
As Zell says, it's like our perception point of consciousness. That is the halfway point between the inner and outer, or the higher and the lower, and and of course we're here on Earth, which is the heart, which is the center of any kind of chakra kind of system or whatever. And some say there's heavens above and hell or heavens below, and we're in that middle point, and that's what we're here to achieve. We're not here to be God, because God and that kind of higher perfection and so on is something that is outside of this material world.
Well,
and it is
interestingly enough, your lower chakras tend to be the things that you are most they're mostly connected to experiences with the dark, so self-confidence, and your lower chakra, your root chakra being love and grounding. And if I think of the areas where I've had to do my most healing, or look at the reason I've made some decisions, have been connected to those lower chakras. And then your higher chakras tend to be the ones that are connected to your sort of higher being, your higher connection. And then in the middle, the heart chakra being the 0 point, and they have to be balanced. There has to be a balance between the two, so that you can then be in that heart expanded 0 point.
cool. Well, Keith Astro King says we would be mindless without the dark. Yeah, I mean, no, we came into this. Let's call it, just for the sake of the conversation, we came into the so-called lower world to experience things. And if you want to get fit, guys, and I experienced this the other day because I'm quite unfit at the moment, but if you want to get fit, you have to run some pretty hard yards, and you have to expect for it to feel pretty uncomfortable. So I wanted to, Zal says, I have the feeling that other previous cultures have mysteriously disappeared during other recent times, have vibrated out of here, and they reached this nexus point that we're getting to. Yeah, maybe. And all I can say is, if that's what's coming, then, just keep doing the work. I think one of the reasons I try not to get too drawn into like that end times thing, because end times and mud flood in 3 weeks time, or in 3 months, 3 years, whatever, all of that is a dreadfully frightening kind of prospect. Just think about it like you've got this big test coming up, or you've got the debt collectors have sent you a letter and they're coming around to your house in a week's time, and we've had enough experience of this. They send you a letter and they're coming around in a week's time. Now, for that whole week, your vibration is really crap. and it's really poor, and you're not doing the things around the house, you're not cleaning, you're not attending to things in the same way, personal care, because you're actually vibrating in fear of this event that's coming. And I think that's why I try and shy away from it. Although intellectually it's on the table, I know that that's a real possibility. I just prefer not to get into that, we've run out of time, and it's just, now it's just the, the ticking time bomb, and it's about to blow. Obviously I encourage people to continue doing the work on themselves and to keep growing where we can, but at the same time, not to do so on the basis of, oh, you're about to be judged, oh, God's going to weigh your soul or your heart or all these sorts of things. If fear is what is motivating you, then it's the wrong kind of motivation. Your motivation should be out of love for yourself and for God or the creation, the creator,
and others,
or all of it.
Yeah.
So, and I think a last comment was from Gracie said, that's why our pineal glands are getting calcified with fluoride to stop us from connecting to that higher self. Just want to share with you that as a child, my mom gave me fluoride tablets every morning for years. I used to look forward to them, little pink tablets. So whether all the cannon explosions that I went through in the army, thousands of them, massive, I was sitting right next to this big gun, and every time it would go off, it would be like smacked in the head with a wet towel, heavy wet towel. So maybe that helped crack my pineal, all the fluoride on it. But they're definitely trying to keep our vibrations low, and calcification may be the thing.
Can I just say something about that? Remember too that your lungs are the biggest producers of DMT, and actually what seems to be very popular, or certainly people seem to be doing more of, is breath work. They call it transformational breath work, and I've done a little bit of it, not enough, but I know people that have, and that it's been transformative in terms of their journey, because actually it's not just about the pineal gland, it's about the balance, and actually, yes, that breath work is what's needed to produce the DMT. So it's about more than just the one thing. We don't want to just get fixated on the pineal. I think our whole self needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing about Gracie, and I've spoken about pineal plenty, but the thing about the pineal and the calcification of the pineal and so on is that a lot of that is a bit like, they do with the cigarette packet. Nowadays they put these horrible pictures of someone's throat being cut out because they had cancer there and that kind of thing. And I think what they do in lungs, black lungs and so on, I think what they do is they like to ideate sometimes fear porn, so that we think that that's what it looks like. You and I have no idea what the pineal gland really looks like. I mean, we can't see it for ourselves. We've seen cut throughs, and we have this idea in our minds of this tiny little thing, a serotonin producing little thing. And we sort of envisage it being sort of encapsulated, because we've all seen a picture of an encapsulated, what seems to be an encapsulated pineal gland. We don't know whether that's not them putting that out there so that we imagine we have this little tiny physical pine cone gland in our minds, in our brain, and it being coated with stuff that stops the signal working. That could be more powerful than any fluoride. So clean the fluoride, distilled water, all that sort of thing, absolutely, and try and wash all of these things out with chelation of some sort, for sure. But at the same time, I like to encourage people not to be fearful of what they might have been able to do to us, and certainly those of us that are seeing what we can see, I think it failed to work. But I wanted to quickly, there's two things that have popped up. One, Ms. Chime was saying, you said before this runs out of battery, my battery's nearly flat. Thanks for sharing, Dave and Andrea. These chats are so supportive and loving. I wanted to read that out. And also to thank Ms. Chime for giving people a shout out there to hit the PayPal for us, the Trinity4Man@gmail.com. I am hoping to pay for my locker this week. But I wanted to share one more message with you, and that is, I told you earlier on that I'd written to my sister. I haven't written to her for a long time. We've been estranged. People used to think that we were the best brother and sister combo that man had ever seen. People thought we looked like twins. She and I are 1 year apart. But the 9/11 truth stuff, and then the flat Earth, it killed my really damaged my relationship with all of my family, including my sister. But today is her birthday, and last night I thought I'd send her a loving message and say to her how much I miss our relationship that we have had in the past, but that I am for better or for worse, and no matter how much this has cost me, and in so many ways this has cost us all, but no matter how much it has cost me, I know that this is a mission that I was always intended to make. I won't go into it now, but my whole life, in a way, I felt like there was no purpose, that there was something higher going on, but no one could see it. None of the adults, none of the grown-ups, none of my teachers could see it, and therefore I gave up on there being a higher purpose, and I gave up on there being anything more than this Darwin material thing. And I pushed Darwinism, and I pushed there's no God, all of that. But I now know that there was always a purpose to this, and a higher purpose to this, and I believe truly that I am called to take certain actions and to take a certain path, as unpleasant and uncomfortable and so on as it may feel at this point in time for me and for those associated to me. I know that there is a divine path. Anyway, I've written that to my sister, and all I saw pop up now a second ago while I was talking to you was, hey, good morning, brother. This message means more to me than you can imagine. I don't know what else she's written, but I'll read it. I'll read it later on. But I thought I'd share that with you, because if, like me, you have alienated those around you, the loved ones in your closest family, I think the time will come for you to lead the reformation of those bonds, those connections, to be the higher being, and not be invested in those people that are angry with you, those people who want to say that you can't see, they're talking shit and stuff. Forgive them, for they know not. That's the message we get. Forgive them, for they know not, and love them, because they are like you, each of us, a product of the Creator, and we've all been thrown into this soup of deception, this darkness, and some of those mushrooms are meant to come up early. Some of those flowers are meant to come up early and lead the way to the spring, lead the way to the light. And however it's going to be balanced, it should be in balance, and perhaps we're the vanguard of that. But anyway, I thought I'd share that. It's a lovely note to get from my sister, and a loving note upon which to end this stream. I thank you for your support, your time, and I wish you much happiness and fulfillment on your own road to self. Don't spend too much time staring at the screen. Get out in nature, sun gaze, barefoot, and love your neighbor, even if he's a dark fool. I mean, I'm not going to get on here. Love your brother, love your sister. Thanks, my friends. I love you guys for your support, and just for coming by and just for throwing in some comments. I really appreciate that. And yeah, you'll hear a bit more from me. We've got 4 more days here, and then we're on the road, and it'll be a little bit unsettled until we find our next resting spot on this journey. So stay well, and be loved. Be love.